Let me go ahead and introduce our speaker for the evening. Richard Stember is a scientist, inventor, software entrepreneur, and published author. Richard founded and leads the nonprofit organization Science Heads Incorporated, whose mission is to promote science literacy and STEM education. The organization presently has chapters in Northern California, Southern California, Oklahoma, New Mexico, and North Carolina. Man, these guys get around. The Science Heads Explorer One mobile observatory is a frequent visitor to many Southern California libraries, elementary and middle schools, museums, and public parks. His new book, Share the Universe, is an informative guide for organizing astronomy outreaches. The book is based upon Richard's 30-plus years experience in various informal educational roles, including as a NASA Solar System Ambassador, lead host at the California Science Center, the Endeavor Shuttle exhibit, and executive director of Science Heads. Hey, is anybody in this room? I have been to the California Science Center to see the Endeavor Shuttle there. You guys? Oh, it's a trip you ought to make to Los Angeles. Yeah, excellent museum in Science Center and the shuttles on display there. Anyway, Richard has a Bachelor of Science degree in chemistry from University of New York. He is well known in the field of chemistry, informatics, and laboratory data management. The LabTrack ELN and LIMS software that he developed is currently used by hundreds of scientists working on quality control, research, and R&D laboratories around the world. So please welcome Richard Stember, our speaker for this evening.
Thank you very much, Eric. Thank you for that great introduction. I blush a little bit when you read all that. So I'm usually not introduced in such a grandiose way, but thank you so much. I appreciate that. So I want to thank Tim, and I want to thank Eric, and I want to thank you all for hosting me tonight to talk about a subject which is near and dear to my heart, and that's astronomy outreach. As Tim had mentioned, you know, I've been doing astronomy outreach for quite a while and informal education for even longer than that. I've been a docent at the California Science Center for over 12 years. Was there when Endeavor was first delivered, and every other Saturday until recently, I've been standing underneath the Space Shuttle Endeavor, telling people all about it. Before you plan any trips down to the Science Center, I just want to caution you that Endeavor is off exhibit. The center is building a whole new complex, a large building to house Endeavor, and it'll be displayed upright like it's going to launch, like it's ready to launch, full stack as we call it. But it won't be back on display until sometime in 2026. So do plan to come down maybe towards the latter part of 2026 to see it. It'll be an amazing display, and I'll be there, and just tug at my shoulder, I'll give you a special tour.
Excuse me, Richard, are they also going to display the shuttle on the fuel tank?
Yes, so it's already attached to the fuel tank, and the solid booster rockets are already attached to the fuel tank as well. So it's already in an upright, ready to launch like position. It's just that the building that's housing it currently is closed to the public.
I see. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. We do have some other interesting aerospace exhibits. So if you're in the Los Angeles area, it's worth stopping by. And we have you know, a Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo capsule. We have a SpaceX Dragon capsule, and we've got an Electron rocket from Rocket Labs on display, and a Mars lander, and all sorts of things on display, just not the shuttle. And I'd be happy to, tell you more about that, at the end of the presentation when I'm taking questions. So thank you. So I am proud to have written a book recently, my first. It was published last year, titled "Share the Universe: A Guide to Outreach Astronomy." It is meant to be kind of A to Z kind of introduction to doing astronomy outreach. But I dive pretty deep into some subjects which usually aren't discussed at astronomy clubs and such. And I'm going to touch upon some of these subjects today, including communications with the public, how best to do that, type of audiences, how to address audiences, different tools and techniques that we use at Science Heads to engage with people, even assessing effectiveness of a program. The book goes much deeper into these topics, but I'm going to touch upon some of the highlights of these things in tonight's presentation. As Tim mentioned, we currently have 5 chapters across 4 states. We have well over 200 volunteers for those chapters. And I'm going to talk a little bit about recruiting volunteers. Tim requested this, and I have some ideas that I can share with you and how to build an army of volunteers if you'd like. One thing different about Science Heads, as the name implies, we don't just do astronomy. We actually do outreach events that include all of the STEM subjects. So all the sciences, biology, physics, chemistry, and more, technology, like radios and robots, engineering, and even math. So we're much broader than just astronomy, although tonight I'll be focusing primarily on our astronomy, outreach activities. We do some really interesting things like launch high altitude balloons with student design experiments. We've got ham radio operators that host communications at school assemblies, communicating with astronauts at the International Space Station. We do have STEM kits that we give to libraries so patrons can check out different types of STEM activities and such. And then we do, outreach activities at schools and libraries and museums, for public events as well. We're always looking for people to form new chapters, but we're also partnering with various clubs and organizations to, in a synergistic way, reach more people and offer more, capabilities. One of the topics I cover in the book is knowing your audience or understanding your audience. And of course, one of our main audiences are adults here in the US. It's always important to understand that most adults receive no formal education in science, once they graduate past high school. So we'll use a couple of slides in a moment or two to talk about what's taught in the schools. But I wanted to share some facts about the status or the state of science literacy in the United States to give you an idea of why we founded Science Heads. Back in 2002, the National Science Board, part of the National Science Foundation, issued a report. They actually issue a similar report every year. It's called Engineering Indicators. But in this particular report, it's notable because they surveyed Americans or adult Americans to learn what they know about science. And here's some shocking statistics which popped out of this report. Of the people that they surveyed, only half could tell the surveyor how long it takes for the Earth to orbit the sun. I'll let that sink in for just a minute. In other words, half of Americans couldn't tell you that it takes 365 days to orbit the sun and why it's 365 days or 366 days. Only a third could explain how an experiment, a scientific experiment, is conducted. And less than a quarter could explain what it means to study something scientifically. When I read these statistics, I was quite shocked, as maybe many of you are as well. It's really kind of a scary thing. People here in the United States, particularly adults, really don't understand science very well. To address this as best as we could, we founded Science Heads, a number of us who, locally here in the Orange County area, either retired or semi-active scientists and engineers, we got together and formed the nonprofit Science Heads back in 2014. And we started recruiting people for what I call soldiers for science, people who are interested in promoting science, real science, dispelling conspiracy theories and disinformation and all sorts of things that are flying around on the internet these days. Not just astronomy, but all of the sciences and all of the STEM subjects itself. And as I mentioned, we're forming new chapters and finding new volunteers, and we're all volunteers. None of us are paid. There's no paid staff at this organization, including myself. And we're partnering with other organizations to address the shocking issues that were on my previous slide. So what potential is there for addressing this? It's obviously not going to happen in a formal education setting in school, because American adults are out of school already. So how do you address this? Well, here's some very useful information. It's been estimated that there's over 600.
Excuse me, Richard.
Yes.
I'm sorry for interrupting. Our
Of course.
monitor burped again on us here. Looks like Eric's got it back, or he's almost there.
Was the previous slide displayed, Tim?
Yep, we're good.
Okay, we're back with you. Apologies.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Well, feel free.
I would interrupt him again if it happens.
Okay.
Yeah, just let me know. I'd be happy to pause. So it's been noted that there's over 600 astronomy clubs in the United States. If each one of these astronomy clubs, like the Stockton Astronomical Society, is doing on the average 2 outreaches per month for about 200 attendees, these 600 clubs could reach 2.8 million people in the United States each year. That's a big chunk of people. Now, as Tim mentioned, I'm also a volunteer with NASA. I'm a solar system ambassador. And as an ambassador, I give a lot of talks about NASA missions and science that NASA is doing. There's about 1,200 NASA solar system ambassadors currently around the country. NASA, like all the federal government agencies, collects a lot of data and publishes that data and makes it available to the public as well. They keep track of how many people we, NASA and we ambassadors interact with. In 2023, I haven't seen the 24 numbers yet because the fiscal year hasn't ended, but in 2023, we actually communicated with over 600,000 people. So together, just these two groups are reaching, almost 3.5 million people in the United States, albeit not just adults, but also children, people of all ages. So there's a potential for working with all of these clubs with their outreaches. There's a potential working with the solar system ambassadors and others as well, professional scientists and educators, to start addressing this lack of understanding about science, which seems to be so prevalent here in the United States. Now, obviously, another major component of the audiences that we're talking to are K through 12 students. So it's a good idea to look at what they are learning in school. A number of years ago, the National Research Council organized several committees that looked into science education as it existed then in the United States and redesigned the whole syllabus, if you would, and came up with what's called the NRC framework. The NRC framework specifically is for science. It touches upon all the sciences, physics, astronomy, chemistry, biology, etc. And the following years, educators, volunteers with the National Association of Science Teachers, organized into committees and implemented a structure for teaching that framework. That's called the Next Generation Science Standards, or NGSS. This map that you see here shows in color all of the states that have adopted the NRC framework or adopted the NGSS. More than 3/4 of all the students in the United States are being taught following either the framework or the NGSS standards. California is an NGSS state in blue, while other major states are just NRC or off doing their own thing. So across the country, a large number of students are learning based upon a very specific syllabus. Now I'm going to take you through just a handful of slides talking about what's in that syllabus. And the key points I want you to pay attention to are what are called the endpoints. What should students know by the time they move on to grade 3, move on to grade 6, move on to 9th grade, or graduate from high school, graduate in 12th grade? What are they supposed to know about science at those points? This information is in my book. It also came from the National Association of Science Teachers documentation. It's a little bit wordy. I'll break it down for you. But by the end of the 2nd grade, students will have been introduced to the concept of stars, motions of our sun and moon, times for sunset and sunrise, and they vary by season, and an explanation that telescopes help us see distant stars. By the end of the 5th grade, they will have learned that the sun is a star that's closer than the others, that stars can vary in size and distance, that the orbit of the Earth around the sun and the moon around the Earth causes patterns, seasons, and lunar phases. They learn about the solar system, and they come to understand that lenses bend light. Now, when I saw this, I was thinking, seriously? An 8-year-old is only required to know this? Something about stars, motions of our sun and moon? And an 11-year-old is only expected to understand that stars vary in size and distance, etc. I was a bit astounded that the bar had been set so low. And part of that is because of my experience doing astronomy outreaches. You've maybe experienced this as well. How many times has an 8-year-old walked up to you and sat and started spouting all sorts of facts, mostly correct, about the planets, about the moons, about galaxies, and go on and on about black holes and such? Certainly, I was led to believe that a lot more detail was being covered in the schools by these precocious kids coming up to me. It was a delight to be able to have a conversation with an 8-year-old about these things. But it turns out that precocious 8-year-old is probably not as common as we would think, or certainly the syllabus isn't creating those 8-year-olds. Let's go a little deeper. By the end of the 8th grade, they finally learned something about the Big Bang Theory and that the Milky Way is just one of many galaxies. They've learned a little bit about gravity and the model of the solar system to explain eclipses of the sun and moon. They finally heard the word fusion and how it takes place in the center of stars. By 12th grade, they're learning a little bit about light and the fact that it incorporates different wavelengths, which can be discerned through spectroscopy. They are introduced, but not really very deeply, into quantum physics, and they're taught about technologies that are used for scientific research. Again, 14-year-olds are just expected at that point to know something about the Big Bang Theory and eclipses and fusion. And 18-year-olds just learned about spectroscopy. All of these years of me standing by my telescope out at an outreach, explaining about Cepheid variables and supernova and many other topics which I find fascinating. It's no wonder the number of people who walked away with glazed eyes. Based upon this syllabus, anyway. So don't be fooled by that precocious 8-year-old. A lot less is being taught in the schools, but it is important that we consider aligning our communications and our activities with this syllabus so the students can get the best of it. So how do we do that? At Science Heads, we've spent a lot of time thinking about and training and incorporating effective communication techniques into what we do. And I wouldn't dare, suggest this is better than what you're currently doing. I'm sure your outreaches are very effective. And I'm sure the participants get a lot out of it. I've learned from other sources that there are many ways to communicate, some ways better than others. And what I want to touch upon is some of the communication techniques that other organizations use and have found to be very effective. First, though, we should understand what field we're in. If we're talking about astronomy outreach or STEM outreach, we're in the field known as informal education. What's informal education? Well, it's what happens after school or what happens after somebody graduates from their last year of school, from high school or college or university. Informal education happens after that. It may be an after-school program for a K through 12 student, or it may be, an adult who has just a 4-year college education. It's important to understand what we mean by informal education and its characteristics. One, the audience is what we call a non-captive audience. Unlike students who are legally required and hopefully required by their parents to go to school, informal education audiences don't have to be there, and they know it. If they're bored by the topic, they can get up and leave anytime that they want. If they are there, it's probably because they are self-actuated and very motivated to learn. They want to learn. They want to know what you've got to say. And that's an important aspect of what we do. It's also important that in this world we're living in, there are almost an unlimited number of untrustworthy sources of information, disinformation and misinformation, conspiracy theories, and all sorts of weird, strange ideas. How many times have you been asked or been approached by somebody at an astronomy event saying, I heard that Mars is going to be as large as the moon next month. Well, that was a theory that was floating around the internet and still does float around the internet every now and then. And others, faked moon landings, etc. There's no shortage of them. We're competing with those sources of information, which are so easy to find and so readily discovered. And we're also often forced into very short communication opportunities. Standing at my eyepiece, my telescope, when the line is long, I'm lucky if I have, a full minute with the guest as they're looking at the Orion Nebula, and I'm trying to explain to them what they're seeing. So the communications tend to be very short in informal education, or can be very short. So how do you address an informal education audience so that they continue to be motivated, they're captive with what you're saying, you're providing trustworthy information in as short of a period of time as possible? Well, there's a technique called informal interpretation, and maybe you've run into it, you've experienced it, or maybe know of it. Informal interpretation is a technique that has been employed in many organizations. For example, the national parks. If you go on a ranger-led hike, for example, where the ranger is telling you about the local fauna and local animals and geology and such, chances are, almost 90% probably, they're employing this technique of informal interpretation. The National Park Service makes this training available to all of their staff, the forward-facing staff, that is, that interacts with park patrons. Many state park rangers as well, and nature center docents, museum docents, and science center volunteers are all often trained in this technique of informal interpretation. Now, my slides here are not going to go very deep into this. I'm going to kind of cover it from a 50,000-foot level. There are plenty of good books, including my own, that touches upon this in more detail. But let me start by saying that informal interpretation consists of 4 basic elements. These are: the communications are thematic. They have a theme that carries through the course of the communication. They are entertaining. Remember, this is a non-captive audience. These people can get up and leave whenever they want to, particularly when they're bored. In a very real sense, an informal educator needs to be entertaining. You don't necessarily have to be a stand-up comic, but throw a few jokes in there. Make a few exaggerations. Use your hands. Do what you need to do to keep their attention. The topic and the communication needs to be relevant. Why does this matter? Now, obviously, the eventual explosion of Betelgeuse, may become really relevant, particularly in our night sky. But most astronomical events are totally irrelevant to life here on Earth in most ways. By relevant, I mean something different. I mean, put it in terms that the audience can understand. When I'm talking about the distance to the moon, on average 250,000 miles, I try to throw in there how many days it would take to drive there in their vehicle at 60 miles per hour, or how many years would it take to travel to Alpha Centauri. That's what I mean by relevancy. Put it into terms that they can relate to. And lastly, the communication is well organized. One of the books that I read on the subject put it very well. The author explained the theme as being a hook on the wall. and all the facts that you present hang on that hook. Without that hook, those facts just fall to the floor and get quickly forgotten. And that's good organization. Bring it all together, making it all make sense. So it's understood and it's retained. This point is an interesting one. For many years before I founded my software business, I was in the sales business, selling analytical equipment. And any salespeople in the audience there probably recognizes this term, the infamous elevator speech. It's what salespeople do in specific situations. The concept is a salesperson is visiting a company that they've never visited before. They step on the elevator, and lo and behold, who's on the elevator with them but the CEO of the company? They've got about a minute or two to make their pitch and somehow get their foot in the door so they can sell their equipment or software or whatever it is that they're selling. And forgive the misspelling there, but an elevator pitch is something that's practiced by salespeople over and over again. They know it by heart. So if they're ever in that situation, they just go on automatic mode and give their elevator speech. Well, this is a technique that we can use in astronomy outreach as well. Remember, I mentioned that often I only have a minute or two at the eyepiece to tell the guest what he or she is looking at. That's when an elevator speech comes in really handy. You're looking at the constellation Orion. In that constellation is a nebula called the Orion Nebula. It's a stellar nursery. It's creating stars. Look at those 4 stars in the middle there, the trapezium. Those are just babies. That's a little bit of humor that I threw in there. They're only a few million years old. That's my elevator speech for the Orion Nebula. And I mentioned a few more in my book as well. And I'm sure you have your own that come in handy when you're doing these very short communications. Another thing that we talk about at Science Heads is a technique that I promote called ELA, engage, listen, adjust. It's a very simple concept. Engage with your guests, ask them questions, listen to their answers, find out what they know or they think they know, and adjust your communications accordingly. Ever since I started following this simple technique, I believe fewer people are walking away from my telescope with glazed over eyes. We're having a more useful conversation. I'm educating and they're learning, and I'm learning as well and improving the technique as I go on. ELA, it's an easy thing to do, it's an easy thing to remember, and it can be really handy. So communications is important, but also tools and techniques are important as well. So I want to share with you a bit about what we're doing at Science Heads in combination with our communications, the tools that we use. Besides standard nighttime scopes, we heavily use solar telescopes, primarily hydrogen alpha telescopes. We use mobile observatories. We have 2 of them. We use what's been referred to as electronically assisted astronomy, or EAA. We use some software and websites as well, and hands-on activities that we have designed. And I'm going to dive a little deeper into these activities. The solar scopes are great because they allow you to do daytime outreaches. And believe me, it's a lot easier to organize a daytime outreach or a daytime event at an elementary school or middle school or even a high school than trying to get the PTA or the PTO and all the teachers and administration to agree on a nighttime event. We do plenty of those, but daytime events have become one of our favorites to do. Turns out that using solar telescopes, you can align with NGSS. It aligns with specific concepts about the solar system that the students are learning. Of course, solar scopes are simple and fast to set up. So that's been a real boon to astronomy outreach. As I mentioned, we've built two of these guys, mobile observatories. Our mobile observatories are built with 12-foot utility trailers and 6-foot rotating domes on top. Inside, as the picture shows, there's monitors and computers. There's a very stable pier that sits on the ground underneath the trailer. There's a hole cut in the floor for the pier to pass through. The setup allows us to use solar scopes and standard scopes. It's stable enough to use imagers, which is helpful when we're doing electronically assisted astronomy. We use the monitors inside to display what's on the computers. The software that we use, I'll touch upon that. We make heavy use of the internet, as I'll explain in a future slide here. And of course, no observatory would be complete without a bunch of posters and images of the sun, of the planets, of moons, the night sky, etc. It turns out that a mobile observatory, of course, is more than just a telescope. It's a demonstration of how scientists work. In other words, observatories are one of the places where astronomers actually work. The secret is that astronomers, professional astronomers, rarely look through a telescope. In fact, I've had plenty of professionals ask me to show them specific constellations and regions in the sky because they just don't know anymore. But an observatory is a great demonstration of how science actually works and where scientists work. And this is an important point. It gives an opportunity for students to imagine being an astronomer. You know, we forget that imagination is really a very important part of education. It's also a very important part of science. And to demonstrate that, I often tell the story or explain how Einstein would tell the story about how he came up with a theory of special relativity by imagining riding on a light beam or a photon. Imagination really is critically important to research and also development, as well as engineering and technology. We're lost without our imagination, and that seems to be a lost art these days. Kids just don't seem to use their imagination very much anymore. I mentioned electronically assisted astronomy. This often is used in combination with the mobile observatories. Here you see pictured a class of elementary students. I forget what grade this was. At a local elementary school, we drove up and parked the mobile observatory, in this case, at the school, and spent the whole school day there. One class at a time came out, and we gave them a 30-minute talk about the sun and its role in the solar system and how important it is to people on Earth. We used a monitor on the outside for PowerPoint slides, but also we use that often for viewing of live images from the telescopes. This is helpful not just for school-age kids, but also for elderly adults who cannot climb stairs or steps very easily, and for folks in a wheelchair or physically unable to enter the observatory. So we can address ADA concerns as well as an elderly audience, as well as a young audience, very easily using our imagers, our telescopes, and our monitors. And it's not expensive to do this at all. You know, $100 imager and a $80 monitor, $60 stand is all that's really needed, and a long HDMI cable or USB cable. We use software in the observatory as well. Two of my favorites is the NASA Eyes on the Solar System. It's one of a suite of free applications on the internet. If you've never looked at this application, check it out. Do a Google, Eyes on the Solar System. They have one for exoplanets and for asteroids. They have one for Earth. And these are applications that incorporate NASA images from spacecraft, space probes, and space telescopes primarily. So these are static images put into a live planetarium-like application. In fact, some planetariums use Eyes on the Solar System for their projections and such. You can allow your guests to actually drive it. The user interface is so simple, and they can navigate to any location in the solar system by name or orbit. They can view objects from different perspectives. They can investigate facts about, Enceladus or Titan or any of the moons. All of the active spacecraft are also in the application as well. So you can find where the Voyagers are or where Juno is. And it's so easy to learn and so easy to use. It's really a wonderful application. It's totally free. All you need is an internet connection. Another website that we use frequently in the observatory is SLU.com. Now, this does require a subscription. SLU has a few observatories spread around the world. There's several telescopes online on the Canary Islands off the west coast of Africa, in Australia, in Chile, and I believe they're going to be setting one up, an observatory up at some point in the UAE as well. And the beauty of this is, with a fairly low-cost subscription, we can do astronomy outreaches even in the rain, even when we're clouded out. In fact, we rarely ever cancel an event because of weather. All of this is easily done online with an internet connection. We stream live images from the telescopes, and we can schedule telescope time if we want, or we can just look over the shoulder of the other astronomers as well. And then also we've developed a number of hands-on activities, and this is particularly useful because our mobile observatories always generate a long line. People often have to wait about a half an hour to get in. So we entertain people online using activities, educational activities. Up above, you see our lunar phases board that the student puts their head through that hole. And as they turn their head, they can realize why the moon goes through phases as they look at the different amounts of portions of the moon that's illuminated. We have activities that talk about eclipses, even history-based activities like drawing, like Galileo did when he observed Jupiter. I'm going to speed up a little bit because I know I'm running a little bit late here. We have a large portable solar system exhibit. It's housed in a 10 by 20 foot pop-up tent, and it has all the planets in proper relative size. There's activities that allow the guests to compare gravity on the different planets and moons. So you see some paint buckets in the upper left-hand corner. They're filled with a metered amount of sand to simulate the difference between gravity on Earth and gravity on the moon. The sound box that you see here plays recordings from Mars. And all of this has been evaluated in terms of effectiveness. Assessing effectiveness of a program does require some forethought and planning, but it's not that hard to do, at least on a high level. Identifying objectives and setting goals, building into your program specific points for assessments and corrections and such. And that can be done with surveys of teachers, parents, and the students. It can be done with interviews. It can be done online or in person. So you can get a sense of how well each activity is working. How well are we reaching our audience? So I'm going to summarize by saying, as we all know, astronomy is a very approachable science. It's popular with both children and adults. Here at Science Edge, we encourage you to use that to your advantage and specifically use it to explain how science works. The idea of a theory is often misunderstood. This is a great opportunity to explain how, what theories really are and how scientists evolve theories into knowledge. Use your knowledge to reinforce what's being taught in the schools. Get familiar with what's in NGSS and the framework, so you can have those conversations and back up what the teachers are presenting. And consider all the options that are available, particularly the inexpensive options, so you can reach the broader audience. I'll leave you with this thought, and that is, since we've broadened our activities, not just broadened in the sense of other sciences, but broadened the things that we do, like these hands-on activities for the people online, we've been able to bring in a lot more volunteers, because it turns out there's a lot of people out there that don't know much about astronomy, but they remember their high school science. They remember why the moon goes through phases, and they're quite happy to help and learn more while they're doing it as well. We engage with high schools. Every high school, at least down here, probably up there as well, has a requirement for the students to perform community service. A certain number of hours need to be provided. Get on the list at the high schools. Get those students engaged with your club and your outreach events. They may not be the most reliable people. They may not show up to every event, but having a few more hands always helps. So with that, I'll open up the floor to questions and comments and discussion.
Excellent. Thank you, Richard. Okay, I'll pass the mic around, and there's also one on that table right there. Very interesting presentation, and I know that just about everybody in this room has participated in our public outreach in one form or another over the years. Even our newest member, I think, he told me the other night you've done public outreach, right, Eric?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what part of Richard's presentation you guys have questions or comments on?
Yeah, he.
Richard, this is Leo. Man,
Yes,
you're
Leo.
really dialed in. I can't believe how amazing everything is, from the mobile, setup to everything. It's just incredible. I'm in awe of everything you've accomplished and everything you've done. So thanks for sharing. It was very insightful. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you for those kind words. You're
Oh,
very
yeah,
welcome.
And by the way, how much was it to set up the mobile observatory?
Sure. So the first one that we built, that was in 2017. We got started on that. It took about 6 weeks to complete. We purchased a used trailer, so we didn't, go out and find a new one. picking the trailer was particularly important. The telescopes were all donated. The pier we had custom fabricated, and all of the materials for that was donated, and the labor for doing the welding and the cutting, that was all donated. So we did have to buy the TV monitors and a desk and other things like that. I think we spent about $15,000 at most on the mobile observatory. Most of the expense has been actually storage and just having insurance for it.
And what size mirror do you have inside the observatory?
So we typically use a 12-inch Schmidt Cassegrain inside the observatory for nighttime use. It's a Meade LX200.
Fantastic. Okay, I'm going to pass it on to someone else. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I have a quick question
Yes, Eric.
about the mobile observatory. What are you using to power everything inside?
Oh, good question. So we can use shore power. We have long extension cords that we can run to it. When that's not possible, we have, just a moderate size gas generator that we can fire up. It doesn't require a lot of current or power. 2 LCD monitors and the telescope and then some LED lights inside are basically, what's powered. And the laptops, of course. So, it doesn't require a lot. A simple extension cord is all that's needed.
Very good. Thank you.
I have a question. This is Casey. You mentioned how much it cost, $15,000 for the trailer, I believe. You also had the thing that you blow up. What was that? The one where the tent. Yes, the tent, sorry. So that costs money as well. Where do you get your funding?
Okay, excellent question. So we do get grant money from some private foundations. That helps. We also don't require, but we invite schools that we do outreaches at to make donations if they can afford to. Many of the events, and you've experienced this too probably, many of the events are fundraisers for the PTA or PTO. So, often they're quite happy to share, in that fundraising effort. And then private donations at our website. We never ask a Title I school to make a donation. We love working with schools of all economic levels. But if a lot of schools can afford it, so why not ask?
So that was also my question. So do you do private schools, and is that where you could get money? But you're just saying PTAs in general would share their money.
Right. So we do on occasion private schools, even religious schools. And most of our activities, most of our school activities are public schools.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
So Richard, you mentioned that high school students have a requirement for community service. Could you elaborate on that a little bit for us and how you folks might use that in your outreaches?
Absolutely. So this is common, I think, across the state. The number of hours or that requirement may not be, the same, but in general, high school students, by the time they're a junior or a senior, are often getting desperate to find some hours at a nonprofit because it's a graduation requirement. So all it takes is contacting the administration at the school and say, hey, we need volunteers. This is what they would be doing. And they'll add it to their list. The school counselors will have that list. The administration may actually post it. And I tell you, every week I get contacted by a high school student looking for volunteer opportunities. We're not doing enough outreach events to, satisfy all the need here in Orange County. I'm sure you can find a lot of students that want to do this and need to do it.
Okay, and then what kind of jobs do you give them to do?
Good question. So, most of these kids are not going to be, telescope savvy. So the mobile observatory is unique in that there's a line management issue. We have to make sure people safely climb the steps and descend the steps. So we'll post volunteers at the entrance and the exit. I mentioned that the lines can get long. So entertaining people on the line is a task that we can assign to our volunteers using the hands-on activities. But we also have, for example, trivia quizzes that they'll walk up and down the line with and ask the kids and their parents, can you name the nearest star? Which always gets a laugh. Or, how many moons does Jupiter have? Things like that. It's real easy to create these kind of quizzes. And it's very entertaining. We try to employ the Disney approach. And that is keep people entertained, keep people busy. They'll have a higher level of satisfaction, when it's all said and done.
Omar, can we make that work? With high school students and volunteers?
So in my experience, because we have employed them, it helps that you have some sort of other connection rather than a random student. So maybe ask for volunteers that are actually, in an advanced science class, because they need the requirements too. It might be a little bit more reliable.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Just kind
So
of curate a little bit who's gonna, But there should be enough of them in local schools that you contact the science department and they put it out there. You'll probably have a handful of kids who are interested.
Doug, are your wheels turning?
Yeah, wheels are turning.
I'm sure you got some
Are they on
comments.
scooter?
And by the way, it's not limited to students. There's a lot of adults out there who are interested in science and see this as a learning opportunity. Finding them is a little bit more challenging, but the website and a couple of other websites can be very useful. You may want to jot this down. Volunteers.com. You can post free ads on volunteers.com, describing, when and where you need volunteers. It could be an ongoing program or it could be a one-time kind of thing. And it often peaks at the beginning of the year. I think it's associated with New Year's resolutions. But that's a great way. We found that's a great way of finding adult volunteers. And often those people stick around for longer periods of time. They're willing to take training and to get more involved with the organization. We've even found board members through volunteer.com.
Yeah, my thing with the student volunteers is having something useful for them to do. Like I said, they're not any good at running telescopes. A lot of times they don't show up.
Right.
They need to have an adult with them. Almost all of our stuff is at night. Our public outreach events are at night. Yeah, so it's just we get asked about having them come out with volunteers, but trying to find something useful for them to do was the difficult thing for us.
Yeah, I agree. We're happy to provide, or consult with you on additional things that are required. You mentioned, these activities are at night and there has to be an adult with them. We established in our organization specific child protection or minor protection rules, which we make available to the parents. And one of the most important rules is that there's always 2 adults present when there's a minor. So it doesn't have to be the child's parent, but there's going to be, 2 adults from the organization. No single adult is ever alone with a minor, for example, and that protects both the adults and the minors.
And so what we've asked for is basically make sure have one parent with them, parent or guardian, that kind of.
Sure.
Richard, you mentioned earlier in your presentation that you have ham radio operators communicating with the ISS. Will you elaborate a little bit on that for me?
Sure. Yeah, this is actually a established program of NASA's. It's called the ARISS, ARISS program. Aboard the International Space Station are some 2-meter ham radios. And several of the astronauts frequently are hams themselves. So they schedule time, and this is often planned out months in advance. There's actually a formal process for requesting a communication session. But if you know a school is interested and you have a ham with the proper antenna and equipment, they can schedule a session with the astronauts. It typically lasts less than half an hour. And the way it typically works is that there's an assembly, in the multipurpose room or the auditorium. The school, fills up the auditorium. Teachers select, in advance specific students based upon questions that they've come up with. And the students get to walk up to the microphone, much like you're doing here tonight, and ask an astronaut a question and get a response from the astronaut. And the ham operator is just there to facilitate the communications. So we have this is done by our North Carolina chapter. They do this 2 or 3 times a year, I believe, at various schools, not just in North Carolina, but originally they were from California. So they often fly back to California and do this. And they're happy to consult and help, other hams arrange this. So if you have a ham or two who would be interested in doing this with your club, we can help.
Wow, that sounds pretty interesting. Dennis, you ready to talk to the ISS?
I got it. Don't have the equipment right now.
Okay. But a special antenna, it sounds like.
Richard, do most of the other clubs that you're a part of, do they have the same observatories and the planetary tents, or is it mostly just Orange County?
Okay, so we've got 2 of these observatories, one in Tulsa and one in Orange County, California. I mean, we've considered building more and may do that as, interest grows in having more. It's certainly been an incredibly exciting tool to have for the reasons that I presented tonight. We've also consulted with other clubs and organizations to help them design and build an observatory. We gladly share, schematics and diagrams and make suggestions and such. We helped I think it's the Ventura County Parks and Recreation Department build one.
Wow.
They have a much bigger one, but they combine, other parks activities with it as well. We were not the first to build a mobile observatory, and we won't be the last, obviously. But we like the design; it works well for outreaches, and that was the objective.
Yeah, it's a great draw. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have another quick question.
Sure.
So for not necessarily your public volunteers, but your organization volunteers, how often do you find that you need to train your volunteers, especially to handle like the observatory? How many different people are handling the equipment, and how do you go about making sure that everybody is trained?
Oh, good question. So it's usually me at the telescope here in Orange County, because I think I'm the only quote unquote astronomer in the group. But we have engineers and scientists, other scientists, so they help out with the observatory, just not at the telescope itself. We have a standard training class on how to set up and tear down the observatory. It takes about 45 minutes to set it up and another 45 minutes to tear it down, pack it up, and leave the event. We offer training for other activities too. That solar system, that portable solar system exhibit that's housed in a 10 by 20 foot tent. We had to train a dozen volunteers on how to set it up and how to run it. And we're in the process of building another exhibit like that, this time on geology and paleontology. So we'll have a training class on that one as well. So we also offer training or provide training, basic orientation training. During COVID, we offered, COVID training, pandemic training. We don't do that anymore. And then we're I'm working on a informal interpretation training class right now. So we have a standard set of classes and we record each. So we don't necessarily have to give it in person. We can just send a link, to the new volunteer and ask them to review it.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Hi, Richard. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name's Jerry, and I'm curious about assessment. I was a college professor. How do you handle assessment with a non-captive audience?
That's a really good question. And I don't pretend that I'm an expert in assessment. I have read some books on the topic, and there's actually a reference in my own book to a NSF document which provides excellent recommendations for outreach organizations. So I'd be happy to share that link with you, as well. A non-captive audience, like I said, is likely to get up and leave at any point in time. They're not going to put up with anything that they're not interested in. Surveying them, including tests. Surveying them can be very challenging. Okay, so what we've done is masked a survey as a informal conversation.
Okay.
Right. So we will, approach somebody randomly and just say, well, what did you think of that? Was that cool? Did you enjoy that? Did you learn anything? Using a standard set of questions, but in a conversational mode, right?
Yes.
The secret is to be casual about it, to not make it a lengthy ordeal, because then they'll, start wondering what the heck is going on, and to collect it in a standardized way. So after you've had that conversation, you can check off some boxes, write down some numbers, find the next person to interview.
Very good. Thank you. It's kind of what I was expecting, just something non-formal where you just want to get an idea of what they picked up during the evening.
Exactly.
Okay, anybody else have any comments? There's a microphone right there.
Okay.
Eric, go ahead.
Hi, Richard. My name is Eric. And I just want to thank you for that lecture on the topic of outreach. I can't stress enough how important that is. It's we got to refill the ranks when it comes to astronomy in general, and then also amateur stargazing as well too. I've done many outreach events actually, and I always found that to hold, when it comes to like holding people captive, because I used to worked at a telescope store in Cupertino, California. And I found what works for me is projecting, I would project my enthusiasm onto a customer or with the public at star parties as well too. And I always found that actually worked. And then for like and then like on return trips or staying constant contact with some of the people at the public events as well too. Then I become their cheerleader. Yeah, and I always found that always worked for me actually. So I don't know. What do you think about that? I mean, your outreach is it's really helpful. It really is, and much needed at that as well too.
Well, Eric, I totally agree, and I love that approach. In fact, when I started volunteering at the California Science Center, the first class they gave us was a half-day class on customer service, and you
Right.
don't think of that in terms of a museum, customer service, right? But in
Right.
fact, informal education is a service, and the
Yes.
customer is the recipient, the non-captive audience member, right? So
Right.
having that smile on your face and conveying enthusiasm, is really important. Another good role model is what is done in the ham radio world. They encourage mentorship.
Oh, okay.
They call them Elmers. I don't know where that term comes from, but somebody who's just getting involved in the hobby is often paired with a very experienced, ham radio person, and that person mentors the newbie, the new person, because it's a bit involved because obviously there's a lot of electronics that you have to understand and a lot of hardware and technology, but there's also classes that you have to take, and there's an exam that you have to take that's given by the Federal Communication Commission. So there's a lot of steps in becoming a ham operator, right?
Okay.
Having a mentor, makes it a lot easier. So mentorship can be something that maybe could be employed in the same way that you just described, but at the club level itself. Somebody
Right.
got a telescope for Christmas. Let's make sure that they're successful with it. Let's
Absolutely.
help them be successful.
Oh, it sounds great. Okay.
Excellent
Thank
point.
you.
Thank you, Eric.
Very good. Any other comments or questions for our speaker? Yep. Certainly. This is great.
I wanted to ask about your elevator pitch idea. And that one caught my attention because sometimes I'm asked questions that I can't, answer right away. So for your organization and for your volunteers, do you have a standardized elevator pitch for the most common objects that you see? Or do you hand out talking points or anything like that to your volunteers?
Oh, that's a good question. So we don't do that. Personally, I think it has to be organically grown, based upon the language that the person uses and their understanding. Obviously, we always want to convey accurate and vetted information, and that's an important thing that we convey in our orientation training. And another thing is, if you don't know the answer, that's where you begin. Gee, I really don't know the answer. Let me see if I can find out for you. And that's, the most adequate answer that anybody could give. Even, scientists don't really know the answer to that, and maybe you as a student will grow up and get a PhD and find that answer, that kind of spiel, that's one of my elevator speeches. That kind of, I don't know.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Well, Richard, obviously we got a lot of good ideas from you tonight, and the offer to share more in the future with us. I think you'll be, I'll contact you again for that. So, y'all just a note, let's see, this is March, April, in May, right, Richard? Is it May or June you're coming back to give another presentation to the club? So we'll see Richard again. If you got more questions, we'll have another shot at him in a couple of months.
Yeah, that's right. I forget the date off the top of my head. Let me look it up real quick here.
I think it's June. Yeah. And
yeah. Yes, June 12th.
Right. Very good.
We're giving a talk on the commercialization of space.
Hey, sound like a good one, you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much, Richard. We'll give you a hand of applause again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Richard. And enjoy the eclipse tonight if you got an opportunity to see it in Southern California.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim, for the invite. Thank you all for your questions tonight. Clear skies.
Clear skies. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye now.
Yeah.
Did you guys enjoy that?
Yeah.
Good. Learned a lot, huh?
Very relevant. That was a good point. Maybe we could standardize, because I talked about Orion, I talked about the moon,
Yeah.
Enceladus, I'll talk about the ocean underneath.
I forget a lot of things in the moment.
And it would be nice to have like a nice page of like bullet points for all.
Yeah, and we don't have to present it so mechanically, but
Yeah,
yeah,
but
it's
like,
like.
just make it rap, we understand it, you know.
Yeah.
Because you have to make it your own.
Of course.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
The best thing to do would be to have something solid and then write your own version of it.
There you go.
Yeah, the way you think about things and little extras that you want to add in.
Yeah.
And,
So what that means is you have to do your homework before you go
See,
out.
that's why I need somebody good for me, and I'm gonna say that.
We want to see an essay on Enceladus.
Right, internet, YouTube videos.
I'm afraid of birds and animals.
Okay.
Yeah.
If we've got time, we're going to play a short video at the end. Let's move that to the end now, since we're kind of running a little bit short on time. I want to get through these announcement slides and then a couple other things with you folks. And then we've got a video that Jeff made for us for the eclipse that supposedly is happening tonight if we got clear skies. So, but our announcement slide. So everybody, if you don't have a camera, or grab your cell phone and take a picture of this slide, just so you have it. And because I realize that a lot of times all of our events don't come up in one place at one time, but they do appear on this slide for March and April and even into May. So March, this coming weekend, on Saturday, the 22nd, Lincoln High School, a daytime event at Lincoln High. I think we've got some solar scopes. Doug, jump in here with me. We should go through these.
I need to know who's available for that.
Yeah, anybody planning on coming out for that?
It's on Saturday, so.
The slideshow that they made.
Okay.
That's because there was a few slides.
Okay, I'm going to keep moving, Doug.
But then it's-
Our normal Highway 4 low altitude and then high altitude Saturday evening star parties are coming up. Look for the Google emails from Jeff. He usually does a good job of forecasting the weather and advising whether somebody's going up or not. We've actually got some good viewing conditions coming up in the next few weeks, I believe. Okay, moving into April, we're back at Oak Grove Park on April 5th for the Astronomy in the Park. Hey, we had a good time this last Saturday night, didn't we? Yeah. Go ahead, Casey.
Is one at Delta College happening also?
Oh. Yep.
I missed that on the calendar here, so
That one.
it'd be April 4th at Delta College, right? Friday night.
Will be, who goes on April 4th?
April 10th, we're back here at Harmony Grove Lab. Eric's going to be doing a presentation that night. And then April 19th and the 26th, our star parties again for the month.
To clarify, I'm not doing April. We have somebody else for April. I'm doing May.
Oh, I apologize. I apologize. Okay, we've got a great program. That's the professor talking about hot Jupiters.
I believe so, yeah.
April 27th, this is a Saturday at Victory Park here in Stockton.
That was the last time we had that. Yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
I need people to tell me if they're gonna be able to make it there.
Yeah.
And
Raise your hand if you expect to be able to come out at least for a few hours on Saturday.
Which event again?
Yeah, April 27th.
27th on a Sunday.
I think I.
Yeah,
Get Omar and Leo
Leo.
and Anita, right?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, you can put me down too.
And Eric.
Cool.
Yeah.
Hey, we have a good time. The public's out there. It's a nice day to go visit the other booths and the
Contact me and
exhibits.
let me know if you prefer the morning shift or the afternoon shift. That way we can split it up. I mean, looks like we've got enough volunteers. We just, like I said, there's no reason to be there from 9:30 in the morning until like 4:30, 5 o'clock at the breakdown. So if we can just split it up, email me and let me know. I've got a list.
Okay.
You sheet of solar films, so I can use it to set up a solar scope.
Yep.
Yeah. I've got material.
Yeah, it's gotta make sure it's good. I just gotta check it.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Pristine and.
April 30th. Do you know what day of the week that is, Doug? Do you remember? At Wickland School, and this is the Mountain House location. It's a Wednesday.
It's April 30th.
This is,
Once again, I need to know if we got volunteers for that one besides me.
I can make it with them because I stay in Mountain House.
Okay.
oh, in Mountain House. Great.
If 27th is a Saturday, it's going to be a Tuesday, isn't it?
What's that?
If the 27th is a Saturday, it's.
No, 27th is Sunday. Thursday's always on Sunday.
Okay.
I misquoted. It's the Sunday for Earth Day. It was Saturday. So,
It's always Sunday.
okay. And then special date, May 3rd, everyone. We're looking forward to having a big party out at Oak Grove Park with the potluck and Striking Sparks Awards, and then astronomy in the park that evening, May 3rd. Okay. The right-hand side of the screen, our dates are for public, for school star parties that Doug is looking to get volunteers before he can commit to them. So April 11th at Ben Holt Academy here in Stockton.
These were, yeah, 5 to 7, it's midweek.
Are they day events?
Basically, yeah, these are. except
E-
for
evening.
the 24th are day events.
All right.
Okay, basically 5:30 to 7 o'clock. Solar scope and just be there. I haven't committed to them yet because we need to make sure we've got a couple of, at least 2 volunteers for each one to do it. So
I think the April 11th one too, they're not, they just really kind of want us to have a table there just to kind of like talk about our club. You don't even really need to have scopes.
yeah, that one, Casey, you might want to, I'll email it to you because it's for outreach stuff and maybe the Audubon Society wants to do it. So
When is the Mountain House event again?
Mountain House is April 30th.
30.
Wednesday.
That'd be like for the day, right?
That'll be,
time?
no, that'll be at night.
But that's gonna be at night.
This one's in
Okay.
Mountain House in the
Even down
evening.
for that one too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let me know guys, like, in Wickland, you guys need any advanced help to go and start up, I just stay there, so.
Oh, is that your school?
Yeah, my daughter goes to Cordis in Mountain House,
Uh-huh.
but we are very near Wickland School.
Oh, very good. Very good.
So we have us 3 at this point.
Okay, and then May 22nd, all the way out in Tracy.
This is the south end of Tracy. We've done it before. His name's Bill Kay.
Right.
We've done it at his place before. It's and it'll be an evening.
Yeah, and
Like,
when
starting at
Pat will be back by then, he lives in Tracy, he might be able to help you, so.
Like I said, for the April 11th, April 24th, if you're willing to do those during the day, once again, email me, please. So I can get back to them and say yes or no.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Okay. Then I wanted to thank everybody that's been out and volunteered as any of the public outreach. Raise your hand if you've been out to one of the public outreach or volunteers this last month or so. Yeah, that's great. Great. This was Astronomy in the Park the other night on Saturday. We had a great time. The photo on the right, Venus and Mercury. raise your hand if you saw Mercury recently. You guys are missing out. You guys are, okay.
That little dot in the scope.
Yeah.
How Venus and Saturn together, it was a giant superstar. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, it was a little tough to see, but then it was up in the sky for quite a while. So I don't know. We should start handing out certificates again for people that view Mercury. Yeah. Okay, next slide, Eric. So I have some sad news to share with you. One of our members passed away. I'm going to read this summary of Jerry Smith's obit. Jerry was born in Vallejo and graduated from Carl Mott High School in Belmont, California. He went on to, excuse me, gentlemen. He went on to UC Berkeley to earn his degree in electrical engineering and then further got his professional engineer's license. He also earned a master's degree from George Washington University and an MBA from UOP. How about that? Jerry served in the Navy and worked for the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, FERC, as it's known in the industry, for over 20 years. He loved working with his computers, watching the stars with his cameras and telescopes, and signing on to his ham radio. And those are his call signs there. So we'll miss Jerry, but Jerry's leaving the Astronomy Club legacy. His family has donated a bunch of his gear to us. We're going through the process of inventorying it, and you'll hear more about that in the future as we look to give away, raffle, sell. We don't know exactly what, but there's a bunch of nice gear that we're going to have available for use in the club. So with that, then the next slide is something that we're coming up with. It's a reissue of a previous challenge that we've had, and for members of the club to participate in the Noon Moon Challenge. So I'm going to read this quickly to you, and then let's have some any conversation or questions you might have. The real basically the objective is to observe the sliver moon the day after the full moon, the new moon, excuse me. And it sounds easy, but it's really not. And this is generally only one day per month when this happens, and only for a short period on that day when the moon is visible. So this is going to be right at sunset, and there's at most a 90-minute window when the moon is visible, and depending on the month, can be as short as 26 minutes before that first quarter moon sets. So you got to really have a good western horizon, some good weather conditions. Get up on your rooftop, climb a tree. I don't know where you go, where you're going to find. But there's 2 awards you can win. You can earn these awards. The first award is to observe the sliver moon for that particular month. The second award is for observing the sliver moon for 12 consecutive months. And if you miss a month, you just start over. That's the really tough one. That's the tough one. So to submit your observation, all you need to do is send us an email, drop me a message that you observed it, the date and time. If you want to snap a photo, this is all on the honor system. No one's going to monitor you. Maybe you want to create a log of the date and the times when it's going to be available. Just hit your planetarium app and come up with those dates. And so you know that you're going to go out there that evening and look for it. And Casey got a great shot of the first quarter sliver moon. She didn't even know she was participating in the New Moon Challenge when she got this, but we were up at Highway 4 2 weeks ago, and she caught this one. We were looking for the parade of planets, right? So where we were looking for Saturn. We did see Mercury. Between the two, the moon sat right in the saddle of Mont Diablo with the foreground lights in the below. So congratulations, Casey. That was a great photo. You just have 11 more months to go. Okay, I've got a little quiz for you. Oh, what happened to the, yeah. At the top, there's something.
Oh, I think I'm zoomed. Oh, no, that's it.
Okay. The header got cut off here, but easy question for you here in the room tonight. Which is the furthest most, Reno or Catalina Island?
Furthest west.
So you all know where Reno, Nevada is, right? And you all know where Catalina Island is. And the hint is, Catalina is 30 miles offshore off Long Beach. So which one's the furthest most west? Don't. Reno? Do we have any Catalinas in the room? You like Catalina?
Catalina.
I believe it was Catalina. Eric,
Next slide.
do you know? I'm asking you.
I know because I.
You know, okay, you looked it up. Okay. Next slide then, please, is the answer. So Reno is 119 and 50 minutes west, and Catalina is a full degree east at 118. So, yeah.
Oh.
Isn't it kind of counterintuitive, huh? Yeah. Yeah.
Are you grading on a curve?
A curve? Sure.
Stay a little longer than.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's kind of counterintuitive, but here in California, we always think of Reno as being far east, but. Okay, that's the trivia question for tonight. Oh, and I think we all get this question, how do I get started in astronomy and what's the first telescope I should buy? And really, what is a beginner telescope? Well, I found a really good picture of a beginner telescope and wanted to share that one with you. That's this next slide.
Wow.
Okay.
Is that robotic? Can I just get up and walk?
So I see no reason why, that should be somebody's first telescope or series of telescopes. I don't know what this guy's got going. It's all on one tripod. He's got a solar scope there. He's got at least a couple astrophotography rigs there. Yeah.
Quite a bit of cable management.
This
Looks like a fire ready to stir.
This might be a finder here on that one.
Yeah. So anyway, I still hold to getting a pair of binoculars for a beginner. Okay. The next slide is the solution. Anybody solve the crossword puzzle? Or... Okay. Okay. So there were two errors. Yeah, there were two mistakes. One was one across. I didn't put enough spaces in there for casino. Yeah, I misspelled Hubble. So this is really a good opportunity for somebody else to do the crossword puzzle. Right?
You didn't mention yay down.
Yay.
Right here.
Yeah.
What is Amy? I mean, what is the I? I don't know.
Is one block short.
I left out the I.
Oh,
I left out the I.
Got it. I got a couple. I misspelled, but I didn't get that one.
So Casey, you're the only one that even attempted to complete it, but all the rest of you are criticizing on finding the errors.
No,
I see the way this works.
I did it.
Okay.
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
You want to be right, but no, so I had to.
Right, yeah.
I did.
Okay.
But I have stickers already.
Yeah, I know. So help yourself to a sticker if you've even attempted to solve the crossword puzzle. Okay, let's give Doug a round of applause tonight for bringing the refreshments. He brought pie, right? Well, today's March 13th, 3/13, right? But as somebody pointed out, we're on universal time here. So it's really 3/14, right? So help yourself to some pie. And just to share with you before we close, the next slide, if you would please, Eric.
Oh.
I got pi to 1,000 digits here. Okay. I know you all were interested. You probably have it memorized to even more digits, right? But the interesting thing here in looking this up is at about the 360th position in the decimal points is the number 360. Is that eerie?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then around 762 digits are these these 6 nines in a row. And there's all kinds of strange phenomena that go on with the repeating numbers and series of numbers. Just Google it on the internet sometime and you'll find all this information about how the numbers repeat themselves. And hey, Doug, you shared with me, grab that handheld there, but you shared with me the origin of pi and the first discoverers of it. Would you mind sharing that with the group? We've got just a minute here.
So, Archimedes was the first one that we know of that actually worked it out. And the way he did it is he took a 6-sided polygon and stuck it inside a circle and realized that that gave him an approximate circumference versus the radius. It gave him the diameter, with adding the 2 lines up with those pi wedges. So he decided that if he basically doubled the amount of basically pi wedges or triangles and made a 12-sided figure inside the circle, that he'd get even closer to the number of the circumference and the ratio. Then he realized that if he doubled that, it would get even closer. So what he did is he actually took the, I think it was the 12-sided figure and did it outside, just outside the circle, and then one inside the circle. And he came up with, I think it was 14/70 for the inside and 14/71 for the outside. And he knew that pi had to be right in the middle of that. And then started, like I said, doubling the amount of facets in the inside and outside to whittle the number down even more. The other thing I thought was interesting was that Aristotle, who wasn't alive when Archimedes was, Aristotle rejected the idea of an infinite number. It just didn't work with his idea. But Archimedes thought that an infinite number was infinitely interesting. And so he just started playing with these ideas of infinity and so forth. But yeah, we owe a lot to Archimedes. He really got us a long way on a lot of different things.
The very interesting thing about Aristotle, he wrote volumes. Aristotle wrote volumes of work on physics, none of which survived to make it to modern day textbooks. Archimedes, however, is there.
Still are relevant today.
Yes, the philosophy is relevant. Well, the theory is that the theory is in ancient Greece, thinking was the highest thing you could do. And actually doing things like setting up an experiment to test your ideas, that was considered very low. That was why you had slaves. So So everything was just fine. If you can think it through clearly enough, that's good enough. But
It was below them to actually prove it then at that time.
yes.
We needed lecturers to do that, then, right? Not professors. Okay, well, anybody on Zoom have anything to add before we close out for tonight? Jinka, it's good to see you joined. Ray, are you there? Maria? Okay, well, thank you all for being here this evening, and I hope you enjoyed the meeting. Thank you very much. And with that, we'll adjourn.